Welcome to Reliability Matters, a podcast for the electronic assembly industry. Each episode covers topics related to reliability, best practices, and environmentally responsible assembly techniques, with insights from experts across the electronic assembly industry. Now, here's your host, Mike Conrad.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reliability Matters podcast. I'm so glad you're with me today. For those of you who are subscribers to the show and get notifications, you're probably wondering, why did I get a notification for a new Reliability Matters podcast episode if this isn't the second or fourth Tuesday of the month? Well, that's because this is a special episode. This episode is more timely than most. Well, all episodes I consider timely. This one is quite literally timely because it's based on a calendar date. And what's that calendar date? October 31st through November 3rd. Put that on your calendar. And that is Surface Mount Technology International. Our Surface Mount Technology International trade show is back, and it's coming up very soon. This, as I said, is a special episode, and normally I bring subject matter experts in, and we talk about specific technologies or challenges and present, hopefully, solutions. On this episode, I'm doing this on a more global scale. We're going to talk about a lot of subject matter experts, but all in one building. For about 2 years, our industry and others were prohibited from attending most live events. Many conferences turned virtual, and it seemed like there was a webinar offered almost every hour of every day online. Thankfully, those days are behind us, as evidenced by the upcoming SMTAI Expo and Conference. This is the first conference since the beginning of the pandemic that is completely normal. No mask requirements, no vaccination requirements, no social distancing requirements, just a good old-fashioned conference. Old-fashioned in the sense of normality, but there's nothing old-fashioned about the technical content. SMTAI's technical conference features leading-edge research and state-of-the-art technology. On this episode, we're going to dive into SMTAI's upcoming technical conference taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, October 31st through November 3rd. And who better to discuss the technical conference than the people who curated it? We have a full house today. My guests today are members of the SMTAI Technical Committee, which includes Julie Silk from Keysight, and she's also a member of the SMTA Global Board of Directors, Raiyo Aspandiar from Intel. Also joining us is Dr. and Professor Martin Anselm, the president of SMTA. So without any further ado, let's welcome our panel. Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
Let's make sure I'm not muted. Nope, I think I'm not. So that's so far so good. We were, as we were getting ready to go on air, my microphone just, for some reason, has a life of its own. Maybe it's because we're getting close to Halloween. It must be possessed. But we've come up with little codes if I end up muted, so they'll be able to let me know. Hopefully that won't happen. Welcome, panel. I appreciate you being here today. And we are going to talk about the upcoming Surface Mount Technology International Conference and Expo. We're going to concentrate more on the conference side. The Expo will be there. There'll be lots of exhibitors. And before we kind of dive into the conference side, Martin, would you tell us a little bit about the show in general? I know it's co-located with another show. Can you give us a little bit of overview on that?
Sure. Yeah, we're really excited for the 2 days that we have our Expo. We're actually co-located with MD&M again this year. We were last year, and it gives our attendees the opportunity not only to see our vendors and our suppliers, but also walk the show floor and see what the medical industry is doing in the area of manufacturing and development. So we're really excited about that. And obviously we have our wonderful conference that is just like last year, going to have lots and lots of great sessions and speakers covering a wide range of topics that we'll get to.
Excellent. I do know that the conference is pretty full. There were a lot of submissions for papers. Julie or Raiyo, can you speak to that part?
Yeah, it seemed like the the number of papers that we got in and the quality of them is excellent. I can't wait to see some of them, in my own points of interest. We have quite a few in medical and defense, and also high performance and reliability, where it can be life and death situations. We want to make sure that those industries want to make sure that they have extremely good quality and reliability. And we also cover a bunch of other topics. Some really deep research is in our interconnect reliability and research track.
Speaking of tracks, let's introduce our audience to the tracks. Now, we have two different types of audience members: those that are listening while they're on the treadmill or in the car or who knows what or where, and those that are watching this on our Reliability Matters YouTube channel. So for the sake of those who cannot see what we're all seeing right now, let's go through the technical tracks, starting with advanced packaging, the APT track. What types of subject matters fall into that track?
That's component packaging. So advancements and discoveries in component packaging. So yeah, it should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's part of the industry that designs packages that we don't know how to solder or clean under or place, right?
That's right.
I've long said in this industry that I think we're unique. We're probably not unique. I'm sure every industry kind of has this challenge. We have the designers who come up with the packages, and then they hand them off to us, and then it's up to us for the next several years to figure out how to place them and how to test them and how to reflow them and all that, and clean them and all that stuff. That seems to be
I feel like I'm on that show, the Brady Bunch. The guy right below me works for Intel. I'm pretty sure they're interested in that topic.
Yeah, I'll bet. I don't know. Intel obviously is known for creating processors and other types of devices. Do you also? Well, I'm assuming kind of an obvious answer to this, but you guys are designing the packages as well, or do you use existing packages? You design the packages.
Yes, we design. We have a special group that designs the packages and mounts the die that is made in the fab onto the packages. And then we have a group, which is my group, that enables the mounting of these packages onto motherboards with high yield and high reliability. So there are three aspects. There's one fab aspect, which is completely different world than what I am in, which is a SMT assembly of packages. And then there's another group that puts the die onto the packages and makes sure that the underfilling thing it's reliably connected.
So maybe what is different about Intel versus strictly just package designers is you have to actually use what you design.
Correct.
Maybe there's an advantage to that.
We don't actually make the product ourselves, like the computers that Dell and HP and other OEMs make it, and those are made at ODMs in China, but we have to ensure that when the packages are mounted on the board, there is good yields and the joints are reliable.
Yeah.
And the challenges are becoming more difficult because of the finer pitches and the larger form factors of these packages.
Yeah. We're a very challenging industry. We want everything faster, smaller, cheaper, and more reliable year over year over year over year. It really is challenging Moore's Law to a great extent.
And if I may, Mike, the conference reflects that in the tracks that we have, right? One of the unique things about SMTAI as compared to a lot of other conferences is that we have both, upstream packaging, like the advanced packaging session, as well as the high performance and reliability sessions that really begin to bridge all these topics together. Because if we want to be able to innovate with new products in the future, these are beginning to overlap, right? You can't be in your own little castle and not be paying attention to all these other innovations that are happening both upstream and downstream.
Yeah, there is a convergence of high reliability expectations, even for what would traditionally be low reliability parts, meaning Internet of Things, IoT, is basically putting electronics in things that have never formerly had electronics in them. And many of those IoT devices are going outside into the harsh, cruel world, such as wearables and things like that. And although the cost of failure is relatively low in terms of injury or something like that, they still have to work, right? So even the cheapest, low to the bottom from a traditional reliability standpoint, part is being stressed. It's being pushed to the max because of the environmental in-use environment that they're going into. So it's even Class 1 stuff almost has to be made to Class 3 standards just to survive in the world due to miniaturization and all sorts of other factors. So the high reliability seems to be encompassing more and more electronic products these days. You agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yes.
is automotive included in the high performance and reliability HPR track? Would that
Yes.
fall under that category?
Yeah, falls under that category. Part of the high performance and reliability, we're having a discussion of assembly onto printed electronics. There's more printed electronics now, and the people who are trying to assemble onto them have no guidelines, they have no standards. There's going to be a sort of more freeform discussion trying to solve some of that problem and figure out the next steps that we need. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Let's talk about the Interconnect Research and Reliability track, IRR. What's that about?
That's a lot of the academic work, the deep studies, the broad, non-product specific studies. There's several sessions of that because there's so much work that's been done out there, and a lot of work that I think was delayed through the pandemic is finally complete now, and we're getting those presentations. So a lot of extremely good work is happening in there.
Yes, that covers a lot of the material degradation phenomena that drive failure in solder joints. That's where the papers in the IRR belong. And that's also related to the LTS track, which is one of the things that I am a member of, the LTS track committee. And in this, there is a diverse cross-section of authors presenting here, including Intel, which initially drove the adoption of LTS into certain segments of the market. So in this track, there are researchers from universities and even engineers at users, such as solder manufacturers, semiconductor package suppliers, and OEMs, which supply packages to the consumer, computer, and server markets. And the topics on these papers run the gamut from, say, thermal cycling of heterogeneous and homogeneous low-temperature solder joints to manufacturability concerns, including rework, solder composition effects on solder macrostructure. And I think of special mention, at least for me, would be papers in the electromigration session, because electromigration is one phenomena that has been raised recently as a major topic to study in detail for low temperature solders.
Yes, we've done some studies where we produced a DOE where we lowered the reflow temperature, the peak reflow temperature by about 5%, and with no clean flux, and conducted SIR testing. And we found that if we lowered the reflow temperature by just 5%, which isn't much, we started failing SIR. If we had the proper peak reflow temperature, just 5% higher roughly, we passed SIR by flying colors. So that's always been one of my questions is, there has to be more than just the metal side of the component. Getting solder to reflow properly and wet at lower temperatures is one challenge. Getting the components, the flux components, to volatilize and burn off and do what they're supposed to do with a low temperature is challenging, because otherwise it has a knock-on effect, as you said, with electrochemical migration and other issues. Let's go back to our track list. Low temperature solder, we just talked about that. I know that that is a hot topic these days, and there's still a lot of mystery there. So that's one good reason to attend that track. Maybe demystify some of it. Manufacturing excellence. So much falls into that category.
Right.
What specifically?
Yeah, there's sessions for each stage of manufacturing, and with some really excellent papers, like from stencil printing to conformal coating, and everything in between in the manufacturing process. So there's some excellent papers that we'll be privileged to see there.
There's a session on smart factory development too in that track.
Smart factory, would that be like connect, like CFX kind of stuff, or whatever the protocol is?
Yes,
is that what we're talking about there?
Yes.
Connected factories.
Yes, there's one session. Yes.
Getting closer to our so-called lights out factory.
Correct.
I don't know if we're able to get there. I don't know if I want to get there, but
well, it's not just lights out. I think lights out isn't a goal that I don't know if we'll ever be able to reach. But what it does provide is insight on defects, right? One of the ways I've heard of certain companies enabling some of these systems and smart factory approaches is to reduce some of those not understood defects that come out of the manufacturing process, maybe at a very low rate, and be able to tie them together with certain aspects of the manufacturing process. One good example is nozzle replacement on a pick-and-place machine. So if you begin to see misplacements, when was the last time that nozzle was replaced on that machine? And it can be very difficult for you to track that if you don't have a system in place to be able to recognize the occurrence associated with a certain part number, and then enact, retipping routines that will reduce those types of defects in the factory environment. So there's lots of different ways that it can be implemented beyond just to the point where we don't have to be in the room anymore. Right?
Yeah, the importance of track and trace cannot be understated, for sure. Materials for electronics, that seems to also be a pretty large bucket. What are we talking about there?
Well, that goes from the laminate materials to solder pastes to adhesives and any of the materials that we use in our products. So we have several good sessions there, and I look forward to hearing more about some of the materials.
I think this track has combined a couple of other tracks from the past SMTAI.
Right. Where it seemed to make more sense to combine all those materials together into sort of one track, so that we can people who need to select new kinds of materials can go to these and learn about what's out there now.
Excellent. Medical and Defense Symposium. That seems to be almost a conference within a conference there. Tell me more about that.
Right. Yeah, this it has a lot of things for, I was talking earlier about life and death kinds of electronics, right? Where it's really important that they be reliable, that they always work. And so those requirements can be a little different than for others. And so if you want to learn about what makes something super reliable, this would be a great symposium to go to. Even for products that maybe don't require perfection as far as reliability, some of the things that happen, some of the ways that you can improve reliability really don't cost that much, and can be helpful to the whole industry.
Yeah, excellent. I think that'll be a popular topic. Technical innovations. That's one of my favorite. That seems to be where new stuff is announced and discussed. Any insight into the technical innovations track?
Well, I can address it. I'm actually the chair of that session. Not to belittle it, but if there's anything that doesn't fit in all these tracks that we talked about earlier, that's where the technical innovations talks go. So they can vary from year to year, but very often they're the most interesting topics, right? Things that people may have not even been aware that these new technologies are coming down the pipe and how they may affect their manufacturing processes in the future. So whether it's using focused light for soldering or a new technology for inspection or what have you, that's where these technical innovations will be presented. Sometimes they're only a couple of years out, sometimes they're further, but it gives the attendees of our conference the opportunity to see what is the new technologies that may be coming in the future.
Wonderful. And the last track, at least the one that I'm aware of, is test and inspection. That seems like a pretty obvious description. What types of papers are we seeing within that track?
There's a lot on computed tomography, X-ray, and other kinds of testing. So,
yes, the solder joints have become much smaller. You need to have some of the present techniques get a little bit more of magnified to look at some of voids and other types of assembly defects like head and pillow, non-wet open. It requires some enhancement to the inspection machines, and some of the papers will cover that in this track.
Yeah, I know subjects like AOI and SPI and X-ray are all hot topics on this show.
Yes, yes.
I have a theory, I've said it on the show before, that X-ray causes voiding, because before we had X-ray used for our industry, there were no voids. So be careful when you use those X-ray machines, right?
If you don't look for it, you don't find it. That was the thing, you know?
Right, exactly.
But we really do want to look for this stuff. So,
yes.
Especially things like head and pillow that are, latent failures. They fail at the customer, and that's just devastating for the customer and for our financials.
Yeah, for sure.
In my old failure analysis days, my customers would always want to have that magical inspection process that would not damage the board and not have any kind of impact on their production, but be able to tell you exactly what the root cause is. So.
Right. Yeah, and still be able to ship the board. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So much for cross-sectioning. Yes. On this show, we've had many subject matter experts talk about voiding, and it's so funny because there are two pretty mainstream opinions on voiding. One is that it's completely overrated. You could have 50, 60, 70% voiding and everything will still be fine. And then there are those that go, oh, no, 2 or 3% is what we're shooting for. And then there's, of course, the IPC standard, which is generally, for BGAs anyway, that's 30%. It's all over the map. And so I guess it's a little bit in the eyes of the beholder, right? You know, it's application specific. It's there's perception, there's reality, and they don't always converge. That seems to be the common takeaway when it comes to that particular subject. But that is a subject that just won't die. Voiding is a phenomenon. Whether it is overrated or underrated is, I guess we'll be talking about that at this and future conferences.
Yes.
One of the things I want to mention, Mike, before we leave this topic is that a couple of these tracks, like the LTS and the IRR, have a very similar subject matter. So to avoid people from missing one or the other, we have organized them that the sessions in these two tracks don't overlap. The IRR is, I think, Monday, Tuesday, and the LTS is Wednesday, Thursday. So that's something that we kept in mind when we laid out the conference program.
Well, that's really good, because one of my frustrations with any conference, and it's a good frustration, it's a good problem to have, is sometimes there's competing papers that are in different rooms at the same time, and you have to, I want to see both, and I can't. I can only see one of them. So that's always a challenge. So it's good when there's two popular tracks to stagger them like that, so that you can get the kind of the best of both worlds. That makes it a lot easier on the attendees. Okay, we have some special events at the Expo and conference. Starting off with the Passport event. Martin, can you tell me a little bit more about this Passport, or anyone on our panel, tell me a little bit more about what this is?
Well, the SMTA, as many other organizations are doing as well, is we recognize that we have a pretty large influx of young professionals that are coming into our industry. and in the future as well. So we're creating special events to focus on networking and getting to know our industry a little bit better. You may be shy or not feel like you have the experience that other members do. So you can participate in something like this, your passport to Expo networking, and actually have the opportunity to go from Expo location to Expo location, getting that passport filled out and being introduced to some really important topics like cleaning and X-ray and rework and component placement. So there'll be a series of stops that the participants will have to go through with the express intention of getting young professionals more involved and getting to know some of these suppliers. And there, as it shows there's the opportunity to win a couple of gift cards, and trying to make it a fun event for everybody involved.
Excellent. It's such a relief to see young blood coming into our industry. For quite a few years now, there's been this silver tsunami effect where a lot of the experienced older people are leaving this industry, and many of those people are the subject matter experts within their companies. And it's difficult to take 30, 40 years of experience and then turn it over to the next person in line, and have all that knowledge. Yeah. So for a while, I was concerned, but I think thanks to STEM and other educational endeavors, we're starting to see a lot of younger people come into our industry, which shouldn't be a surprise. I think we're the coolest industry in the world because pretty much if you're in any room, in any environment, look around and pretty much everything you see, we made. Our industry made that. And, we are the tip of the spear for technology. And even, the younger people who spend 80% of their time on their phones looking at screens, we made those phones and those screens. We made all that possible.
Made them ubiquitous. That
absolutely.
In every single pocket, in every single room of your house. If we were able to bring those yields higher and the reliability higher, it wouldn't exist everywhere.
That's right. Yeah, you couldn't have a ubiquitous technology without our industry and conferences like this that teach and educate. There's also
and I think that there's a lot of the current subject matter experts that are very willing to share their knowledge with the young people in the industry, the young professionals. And this is an opportunity to sort of make those relationships and have somebody who will take your call to say, oh yeah, I got a problem. Can you help with this? I'd like to go over something with you. I think pretty much everyone in this industry is very open to that.
Yeah.
And events like these also provide the forum, not just to be spoken to, but allow those young professionals to ask questions and relay their own experiences. So it becomes more of a conversation than just, thou shalt do it this way.
Yeah, and what's nice is our speakers aren't like, bands. They don't perform and then jump on an airplane and leave. They're there. So even if you don't get your question in during the, short Q&A session, you can hit up those speakers, follow them around, and stalk them and get all your questions answered. They're there, right? They're there usually for the duration of the conference, and they're usually going into other conferences as well. Not only are they teaching, they're learning.
Yeah, and that's one of the fun things about the conference itself is the hallway conversations. Yes. The questions that happen either during the expo in little clusters of people talking about a problem, or after the sessions where people are talking about what they've learned and have questions and maybe make a plan for the next thing that needs to get work done.
Yeah, I think there's also quite a few bar sessions that go on, and that's when it really gets real, right? Take your speaker for a drink and really get an education.
Yeah, right.
There is a women's event coming up also.
Speaking of the bar.
Speaking of the bar, yes, exactly. Those women.
There's a reception afterwards where we enjoy ourselves a lot.
Absolutely, as we all should. And I should say that this section, this special event, is not strictly for women. There are a number of men that also attend this, but it's produced by women in our industry. The speakers that speak at this this special event are women. Tell me a little bit more about this special session and its theme. What's in your toolbox? What's all that about?
What's in your toolbox? So yeah, we usually have some sort of theme, and so this time it's what's in your toolbox. We have some invited speakers that will be talking about their experience and what kinds of tools that they have found useful. And then we have speed mentoring topics that we've related to tools. So they're communicate with confidence, polish your presence, resolve conflict with finesse, and cultivate T-shaped skills, and pay it forward with power skills and recharge. So we have different subject matter experts on those topics, and tables where people will rotate through in a few minutes to talk to each one of these experts that have some experiences that will help the attendees make connections and also learn some things. So we're really excited about our invited speakers. So we have Carolyn Duran from Intel, Vice President and Engineering Manager. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. And also Loretta Renard, Changing the Perception of Manufacturing, and she's from Remap. And then Jayshree Seth, corporate scientist at 3M. She's written some great books, and she's going to talk about leaders and ladders. So we're really looking forward to these talks.
And you talk about learning and connections, and learning seems to be the obvious reason to go to a conference, but I think connections cannot be overstated. I started in this industry in 1985. I was 24 years old. I knew nothing and knew nobody. And I've been going to conferences and expos and trade shows, symposiums and all that for 37 years, and I put probably a greater value even on the connections, even maybe over the learning content, because the learning changes. What I was learning in 1985 is very different than what I'm learning today, because technology changes, at the speed of electrons. Connections generally don't change at that same pace, and they just get richer and deeper and more valuable over time. So that's one thing that the virtual conferences, which we did because we had to, and as others did, that's something that we just lost. You don't have connections in a webinar. You don't have connections in a virtual conference. You have connections when you get people face to face, and even more when they're not wearing masks. Get even better connections. So, that's what I look forward to the most about SMTAI and other conferences is seeing people I know and meeting people I don't know. That is invaluable.
And Mike, to that point, I always get something new out of these conferences every time I go, right? I'm maybe learning something from a session, or as you said just a moment ago, you may be making a connection that you never had before. And the more you can go to these types of events, the more of those connections that you'll have the opportunity to develop.
Right. Yeah. And maybe we'll end on this. There is a convergence of connections and learning when it comes to professional development courses, because unlike a traditional paper, which generally the presentation lasts about 20 to 25 minutes with 5 or 10 minutes of Q&A, it's kind of hard to make you do a lot of learning, but it's kind of hard to make a personal connection during that, very limited time frame. What I love about professional development courses as an instructor and as an attendee is they're 4 hours long. 4 hours. And, when I teach a professional development course, it becomes very a lot of interaction, because I have time. I'm not looking at the clock. I'm not looking at the person whose job it is to hold up the sign that says 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes, and then the hook comes and pulls you off the stage. I've got time. So I encourage, as do many of the instructors, I encourage interaction. I want this to be conversational. And that way, it's not just what I want to say. I can address what they need to hear. And sometimes I'll go way off track because the questions I'm getting asked throughout the course may not have been in my material. So I'll just kind of pause the presentation side and veer to the left or to the right so that we can solve problems and we can engage in fruitful educational conversation. So there are, I'm counting 4 professional development courses. I'm not sure if that number is accurate.
No, there's another 3 the next day.
Oh, the next day. Okay, I'm just showing the first.
There's 7. There are 7 of them.
7. Okay, great. I'd encourage all my audience members to visit smta.org, click on the Surface Mount Technology International site, and click on conferences and professional development courses and special events, and you can dig through everything we've talked about today and so much more that we don't have time to talk about. But I would encourage people to consider attending the professional development courses, particularly, obviously, if it's a subject that interests you, because unlike, not to demean the normal presentations, the papers, as I said, they're 4 hours long. You're going to walk away with a head full of knowledge, hopefully knowledge that you didn't already have, and you'll be able to engage with the instructors at a much higher level and deeper than traditional presentations would be able to offer in their more limited time frame. So I would encourage all of you to check out the professional development courses that SMTAI is offering. Any insight onto the PDCs before we wrap this up?
I was an instructor many years of a failure analysis course too, and you're spot on. It's really an opportunity to get to know the people in the room and share ideas and share experiences beyond just learning about how a particular technique may be performed or what have you. Mike, I also wanted to mention on that same website, there is a pre-event guide that can be downloaded. You can get the full list of exhibitors for the Expo there as well that we have up to today. I'm sure we'll add a few more between now and the next couple of months, but it has all the conference technical tracks as you're just showing right now up there with their timetables, as well as all the professional development courses listed as well. So if your listeners want to learn more specifics about how and what's happening on what day, I would invite them to download that pre-event guide.
Yeah, great idea. Any other insight to this conference and expo that anyone wants to drop on my audience before we wrap this up?
Well, I'm just really looking forward to seeing everyone, and exactly. Meet new young professionals and make those connections.
Me too.
We were in a growth year last year, right? Everyone was questioning how 2021 was going to be. And I think this year's just going to be better than last year. I mean, we're really expecting to have a great turnout and lots of great conversations. So I hope to see many, many people there.
And you promise it'll be 75 degrees and sunny in Minneapolis in November, right?
The weather last year really wasn't an issue. It's still early enough there.
It was chilly, but it was nice. Yeah, it wasn't. There was no snow. There was no rain. It was.
People expected there to be a blizzard and 4 feet of snow outside. Right? Yeah. It's too early in the season.
That's January, right? That's January.
There are skywalks connecting all the hotels to the convention center.
That's true. So yes. Yeah.
You don't need to get outside unless you want to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. All right, excellent. Well, Dr. Martin Anselm, Julie Silk, Raiyo, Aspandiar, thank you so much for being part of this podcast today. And thank you for all the work you've done. I know it doesn't come easy. I know that paring down a lot of good presentations is difficult. And reviewing those presentations and curating the technical side of the conference is no easy feat. And you and your team on the committee have done a wonderful job, and I can't wait to be part of it.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us on the show.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And we'll see everyone in warm Minneapolis October 31st through
Great.
November 3rd. Well, that's another episode. Thanks for listening or watching the Reliability Matters podcast. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Reliability Matters on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or on our newest channel, Amazon Music, or virtually wherever you get your podcasts. A special thanks to Circuit Assembly Magazine's PCB Chat at pcbchat.com and Ascendo Reliability at reliability.fm for syndicating the show. Thanks for your questions and episode suggestions. Please keep them coming. Send comments and episode suggestions to Mike at mikeconrad.com. Just remember that's Conrad with a K. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app, or if you're watching this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when new episodes are released. We release new episodes on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. Well, thanks again for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and perhaps most importantly, keep doing it right. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening to the Reliability Matters podcast. Join us on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month for new episodes of Reliability Matters.